Welcome back to some professional StarCraft 2. Let me introduce to you in the red, the bottom left of Royal Blood. It is the last mech Terran, GuMiho, and his longtime opponent on the other side of the map. You might recognize him from many games in this matchup many times over the last, well, almost decade and a half of StarCraft 2. It's Dongray Gu, the human Zergling. He still uses strategies and styles straight out of 2014. And if you like a classic Terran versus Zerg matchup all the way down to the players, who I believe faced probably over 100 times since Wings of Liberty have created some of my favorite games, well, those good games are worth looking forward to. And I hope you think this commentary is as well. If we get, Jimmy, 1,048 likes on this video, I'll cast another one. I'll cast another series, maybe with these two as well, and I'll probably do it anyways. But thank you for tuning in to Terran versus Zerg, featuring two of the most creative players in StarCraft 2 history. I'd say at this point, at risk of sounding like the old man yelling off his porch, players are kind of set in their ways. All right, back in my day, we opened Hellion Banshee just the way it's supposed to be. All right, back in my day, Zerg players didn't have to use spellcasters who are queens. We could make Zerglings and Banelings and Mutas, and that was enough for us. Well, those days are changing somewhat. The Zerg have adapted to be a little more advanced. You see a lot more Vipers, Infestors, whereas Terrans, well, actually, Hellion Banshee is still quite a staple, and it looks like GuMiho sticking with that particular set of guns, even though neither of those units technically use them. Hellion Banshee and 3 command centers up against DRG, who is opting for the quick 3-hatch, plenty of queens, creep spread, kicking things off. A relatively standard start to this Terran versus Zerg showdown. I do the biggest split from Zerg philosophies, strains, aberrant evolution, if you would. I might not, but you might. Well, here it is. I was gonna get to that point, but DRG showing us one possible path. The mass upgrade Zergling. Just one more time, Jimmy. Yeah. Well, DRG's always shown a tendency to focus on those Zerglings. To a fault, many times, but also to great entertainment value. And it looks like today will be no exception, as double Evo Chamber, before Lair, before Baneling Nest, before anything else, DRG wants the upgrades to make sure those Zerglings are as powerful as possible. On the other side, GuMiho not falling back to the mech army composition, unfortunately, but instead something a little more standard. And in fact, he has some of the best tactical bio that I've ever seen. And I think part of this is that GuMiho overall, on average, not the fastest player, not 400 plus APM like Maru or Beyond, sometimes barely half that, though I think closer to 300 as the game concludes. He relies more on being in the right spot before he needs to, rather than microing himself out of a bad one, which I do feel Beyond sometimes struggles for that exact reason, in that he's relying so much on his micro. And Maru falls prey to this too, but Beyond a lot of the time. He's relying so much on his micro, he's not really making as active decisions on the macro front. It's just, I'm going to put my Marines and Medivacs over there, and I'm going to pray I get out of it. Whereas GuMiho is much more methodical with his tank pushes, his timings, though might not be as accomplished at aimbotting against Banelings, which is, of course, a highlight reel-worthy thing to do. Marines already set up. They're back to a depot. They cannot be surrounded. The SCVs may be body blocking out, but 1, 2, 3 Marines will give... What? Oh, he knows the Hellions are coming back. Okay, I'm like... And then, having their fill, the Zerglings left, never to be seen again. No, Hellions were coming back there. So those Marines tucked into that little position absolutely minimize. Only one SCV died. I don't even know how that's possible. A fright, maybe. I don't. With those Zerglings running in there. Well, Hydralisk Den is on the way. Already 2-2 for DRG with some of the quickest Zerg upgrades I've ever seen. Marines out on the map, but Hellions are protecting them. Juggles the tank back. GuMiho confident in his position. The only thing he moves is the siege tank, presses the stim button, and guns down dozens. Jimmy, no, we don't press that button. I thought we had the battle report button up, but one more try? No, I don't know what I expected. We get to relive these moments. How many times? But yes, the Zerglings come in. Decide to go for the Marines. GuMiho stims. And the Marines don't even have 1-1 here, is the crazy part. It only loses 8 to 44 Zerglings. DRG may be overestimating their power. He has group spines on the way. No Baneling speed. Baneling speed, the most important and most forgotten upgrade. Combat shield is similar for Terran. Terran players. On the list of oft-forgotten upgrades. But GuMiho has his in production. I think the moment that DRG looks at his own Banelings, which I'm going to try to catch it here, he will realize that Baneling speed is not on the way. Or at least... Wow, GuMiho has his Marines in the perfect spot, even out on the map. Oh my. Yeah, those are slow Banes. He's not starting. You might think he pressed the button. That happens sometimes as well. But it's very important here to eventually get Baneling speed. Otherwise, it's going to be very painful for DRG, who's trying to use the Queens to soak the damage. Great target flare out of GuMiho. Knocks out a bunch of the Banelings. Not going to be able to hold this position, but a decent trade and pushes back the creep. So far, so good. 69 Zerglings down. Nice work so far for GuMiho. And only a little over a dozen Marines. Still no Bane speed. Very important to get Baneling speed. That is, I don't mean to yes, okay. There's a reason almost every Zerg unit has a speed upgrade. And it's because getting up close and personal and violating your personal space is the main way to find success. 4th Command Center actually canceled as the Zerglings run by it. So GuMiho going to be a little slower on that expansion than maybe he'd like. Picks up, though, gets the Marines out of there, keeping pressure on both fronts. But DRG still has 83 drones with which to work with, so unless he ends up losing some hatcheries, he's not going to be too put off by all this. 2-2 now on the way for GuMiho. Hive starts for DRG. The only thing that stopped his upgrades from becoming overwhelming. Muscular augments, double factory on the way for GuMiho. He has not leaned out of the factory play as some players will, but leave it to the last mech Terran to lean back in as we go towards the late game. Will be siege tanks, Widowmines, both. He's already got +1 mech weapons. A healthy mix here. A great map for siege tanks. So many ups and downs, quite literally. Oh my god. What the hell was that? DRG just killed his own queen with Banelings. That is one of the most gruesome and confusing misclicks. He also killed a bunch of Marines with Banelings, so that makes up a blood sacrifice. Oh, well, maybe Karen shouldn't have been complaining about the lack of speed upgrades since she's a unit that doesn't have one. Technically, our speed upgrade is the creep. Well, well, DRG still with a huge amount of Lings and Banes. Gonna be very difficult to contend with. Dozens of Lings, a couple dozen Banes, bunch of Hydras. DRG is maxed out. 2-2 upgrades. I'm sure I'll be starting 3-3 momentarily. The Hydraling Bane closing in. It's just Marines. One tank on the high ground to backstop all this. Drilling claws on the way for some potential Widow Mines. For his now 3 factories. But DRG has expanded to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bases. I didn't have to count them myself. I was just doing it for dramatic effect. Oh, I had to count a little bit. 4 Widow Mines at a time. Ghost Academy. And Planetary Fortress for GuMiho. Pulling it all together here. Stutter stepping back with a huge ball of Marines. Sacrificing some to the front lines. The splits. Oh, he's struggling. But finally finds a position where he can gun down the Banelings as they trickle through the Hydras. So far, GuMiho doing a great job of standing his ground, picking his battles. Target firing more Banes. He may eventually lose this battle, but he's already taken out so many valuable units. He's traded for a whole bunch of Banelings. He's now up almost twice as effective and efficient. And the minerals are lost overall. And already has another attack lined up for the center. DRG, though, still maxed out. 90 drones. Plenty of mining here. That siege tank in a pretty disgusting position in order to find as much as he can on the high ground. DRG kind of going back and forth. Splits off a few Zerglings and a counterattack. Finds solid success. But not enough to really turn anything around. Still 2 Banshees going to work. 9 kills, 11 kills. Constantly protecting these attacks. Denying creep. DRG has not been able to get much creep at all on the left side. And the creep is a huge difference when it comes to engaging these armies. GuMiho now has Widow Mines dotting the field. See if DRG reacts to this first one. The shot is fired and hits from downtown. Big chunk of Zerglings. Quite a few Banes as well. Another couple mines. DRG does have +3 Carapace on the way, +2 ranged attack. Splitting off some Zerglings to deal with the mines. GuMiho picks one up. The other one fires. The Overseers are here, but the mines are starting to recharge as well. +3, +3 for GuMiho. Closing in. About 20 seconds out. As he kills the hatchery in the center. DRG, big counterattack into a planetary fortress. But almost no defenses. Takes it out alongside 12 SCVs. GuMiho swings into the right. A whole lot of Widow Mines, but they'll all trigger on a handful of Zerglings. And holding his ground, the Marauders taking a lot of the damage from the Banelings. But GuMiho dipping down to 160 supply during all this. DRG staying maxed out and adding on some lurkers. The rest of the army rebuffed. In the center. Banelings connect. 3-3 now dung for GuMiho. Banshee's still intact as well. So GuMiho making a lot of progress. Getting a lot of damage done. But not actually cutting very deeply into DRG's economy. He hasn't yet come across the map with an overwhelming force. He took out that one planetary. But now we got some lurkers on the way. Actually, lurkers are already done. And they have their upgrades. Only 4 lurkers, but range and speed for them. Creep is now extending over the center of the map. Liberators on the way. Ghosts already on the field for GuMiho. He has all the tools with which to deal with the lurkers. But DRG's building up a bank, and there's no reason for him to stop just continually attacking down the center. And here he goes. There's a Viper blinding cloud on a couple of the tanks, negating them for now. Lurkers on the front. Taken out. DRG's attack, a bit haphazard, but GuMiho's forced all the way back. DRG still a handful of lurkers. Gonna uproot. One gets away. The others chase down. GuMiho gonna try to turn it around on him. 93 to 108 army supply. Liberators on the high ground. GuMiho does only have 4 bases right now. He can't really afford to get pinned back. And DRG finding another angle of attack. The 3rd base. No units here at all to defend. Just the depots. SCV's already on the run. The command center itself is potentially vulnerable. Single lurker. The bottom right on the 4th. Continually keeping pressure. And now all the units are together here. GuMiho, a bit exposed, continues microing back. Knows he has to fight at some point to deal with this, but the tide of Banelings is rolling in, and GG. DRG just with solid macro. Able to overwhelm decisively in game 1. DRG showing off. Well, that's the style right in his wheelhouse there. Yeah, sure, he made a few lurkers, but that Hydra, Ling, Baneling, putting as much on the field as you possibly can, and daring your opponent to do anything about it. And GuMiho just unable to keep up. Well, oh my. Jimmy, please, please, please. Can we get to the game? GuMiho. Well, if I say GuMiho's doing a classic Terran strat, we haven't even shown the game yet. Get in your mind what you think it is. Alright, got that picture? You were right. 2 barracks. Delving into the relatively short playbook of classic Terran strategies. Ah, yes. And then the advanced kicker here. Barracks number 3. GuMiho has decided what he wants. And he wants a whole bunch of Marines and bunkers in DRG's base because he's... Well, Gresvin is your late game macro map. We've seen some of the longest games in all of recent history on this map. I don't particularly blame GuMiho for wanting to avoid that. DRG is sending out an Overlord. So the 3rd barracks is slightly removed because an Overlord may at the very least scout the first 2. But, oh my god, in this case it won't. But the SCV comes in from a very weird angle. Is he going to pull the drones? Yeah, he's pre-pulling it. Oh well. These forces are only under attack for one reason. It begins. The drones are pulled. But 3 Rags Marines are a lot to contend with. Goes straight for the bunker itself. Gonna take it out. Forces the cancel here. If he gets the Overlord... Oh, no. Oh. Well, now DRG is supply blocked. Which certainly doesn't help the proposition. GuMiho going to be trickling Marines into the base. He might not get a bunker, but DRG can't even really make more Zerglings at the moment. It's gonna come down. He's just gonna pull the drones and go for a quick surround. The SCV is body blocking out. Still 5 Marines intact. Drones trying their best, but GuMiho slipping and sliding through. The mineral walk is not enough here. The damage is already being done. There are just too many Marines. And even if somehow DRG cleans this up, the economic damage is devastating. And oh yeah, the bunker's done. Oh my god. And, well... Yeah. Game 3 it is. GuMiho with a cleanly executed 3 racks. DRG, a bit unlucky. Doesn't scout the 3rd racks, loses the Overlord, and just like that, we're forced to a 3rd game. Well, without further ado, in what seemed like almost a commercial break, Babylon. Well, what do you do? The thing about that is, even if you scout it, it still has a lot of effectiveness. Losing that Overlord really hurt, and that's part of the reason I think DRG didn't scout out further. If you scout out too far with your Overlords and you find the barracks, then you potentially just lose the Overlord because it's too exposed and the Marines will kill it in time. That's kind of what happened there, even though he didn't find the ranks. That close to getting back to the safety of the Overlord pillar, but those few seconds made all the difference. Gotta be... That is a tilting game. I don't know, DRG's a professional, but if I play a solid, outright, all-out macro game, and then I just get cheesed out by a 3 racks in 2.5 minutes, and then it's in your mind, like, is he just gonna do it again? What would I do different? Not lose the Overlord. Rarely do they matter quite as much as that moment. But even a few seconds without Zerglings, well. DRG, quick 3rd. GuMiho, taking his natural. 1 Rex, expand. Gonna see. Will we see Hellions? That is a bit far back in the factory. There's a small chance he's trying to hide it. No. It is something a little spicier. He's gonna slap the tech lab down and build some Marines. Now, it might not seem like a big deal, but those few seconds make the difference. Being able to flip the factory over onto the reactor. Here, GuMiho instead choosing to, 1, deny scouting of the factory by keeping it far away from the wall, and 2, clearly not going for the reactor Hellion opener. The Cyclone drop? I have to imagine that's going to be a medevac then. Cyclone drop, the most creative way to kill kill overlords in this economy. Also, potential queen hunters is some of the value of it, as the Cyclone does pretty solid damage, can kill a queen in a lock-on if you're able to maintain it. So, it's definitely something different. Also, another side benefit of this is dealing with roaches. It is quite well equipped to deal with roach all-ins as well. It is not as good as, say, a siege tank and a Banshee, but a siege tank on the way behind. Much better than Hellions in that regard. Or a Viking to kill overlords, as a Viking not known for its proficiency fighting roaches on the ground. But it begins. Overlord number 1 is taken out. How many will be hunted? And this is part of the reason why you'll see so few overlords out on the map. Go to DRG cam. He has overlords right around the perimeter of his base, but that was the only one outside taking a look around. So conveniently for DRG and planned, that should be the only one. I mean, the range on the lock-on is pretty intense. He ends up getting it all the way from another base. Long distance lock-on. Queens will strongly suggest the medevac leave the premises. Medevac agrees. Independently, of course, not because they said so. And now, DRG locks on. No, GuMiho locks on. Yeah, okay. Well, Queens hunt in packs, usually. So, unlikely to be able to find one isolated, especially at this stage. GuMiho lining up for another double drop. Just gonna slap everything into the medevacs and send it across. DRG finally feeling a little confident to get some more drones out before his lair completes. How many Evo chambers? 0. So lair before Evo chambers. Lair before upgrades. GuMiho this time will have the lead, assuming we go down that path. But a big commit on the triple medevac drop at quite a time, and this is definitely a different take on the mid-game Terran. Rarely do we see something quite along these lines. 3 factory units mixed in, all taking up half the space in the medevacs. He's dropping in the main. Just blasting apart some of the queens so far. A lot of Zerglings gonna cover. Well, the queens are holding on. They're actually getting so close to the tanks. They're getting so far up in their personal space. The tanks can't fire at them. They actually, at first I thought this was gonna get crushed. But it actually ends up doing all right. Ends up killing 6 queens. Some real regicide strats here. Thing is, GuMiho did lose all his tanks, his Cyclone, and 2 medevacs. Not to mention the Marines, but usually they aren't mentioned. The expendables, really. But that was certainly not a tip. Land on the Zergling! We can't, sir. It's too cute. Land! No, I won't. Always been an odd thing. And also, why can't you land on a Zergling underground? Explain. It's already burrowed. The Zergling just should be able to get out. Pretty sure Carbot had a documentary about this one. Okay, but the downsides of what GuMiho did. is he lost almost entire map control for a couple minutes now. He's trying to reassert himself, but you look at the creep spread. When you completely avoid it and lose your medevacs like that, you now no longer have the ability to even threaten. Even though he killed the queens, the creep is still spreading. Alright, as long as you can keep it going. So now GuMiho is struggling to move too far out of his base without stepping or flying past the creep. So we'll see if the results, the long-term results of that curious drop end up paying off. Yeah, the queen count back up to half a dozen. They replenish their numbers quite quickly. 1-1 about to complete for GuMiho. Same can be said for DRG, about a second off. In fact, DRG slightly ahead. So GuMiho wasn't as diligent as he possibly could have been on those upgrades. But now they are completed. 2 more factories on the way already. He really wants to go for the mech. In game 1, it took much longer to get to this phase, but the triple factory, that has to be, well, tanks and Whittle mines are quite a mix. But yeah, kind of crazy to go for mech this early. Kind of feels like maybe we should have just gone back all along, but the Bio-Curious build here from GuMiho, with the Marines only being used to buy some space to get the factories out. It has been attempted in the past, mostly rejected for, usually going straight down either the bio or the mech path is a more successful goal. But it could definitely throw DRG off, who's not going to be expecting such a volume of factory units. Assuming GuMiho actually builds any, because right now he's still ramping it up. When you're expecting 5 or 6 siege tanks and 12 show up, well, that's a problem, especially if you don't have Blinding Cloud, in which case GuMiho does not, with his trademark reluctance to go for the hive. He only has an infestation pit half done, so it's a long way off that hive. Meanwhile, GuMiho, double tank production, drilling claws on the way. He's only at 170 supply against DRG, who's maxed out, with no reason to hesitate on attacking, besides dealing with some of these drops. 2-2 is closing in. At the very least, that's got to be the trigger for the attack. He's going to try to roll his way through GuMiho here. Yeah, there's no reason to wait. GuMiho has his upgrades as well, just slightly behind. Keeping DRG as busy as possible, dropping the main, dragging a lot of supply back. Liberator Siege is up, but Spore Crawler are going to take care of it. Alright. 2-2 is now nearly completed. GuMiho is nearly maxed himself. Stimming the Marines, targeting that top right base. Not quite going to get it. Some Banelings in the back. Picked up. And that will be the end of that for now. But here comes DRG. Now it's time. 2-2's done for both sides. Banelings rolling through left, right, and center. Trying to find a connection with the Marines, but good splits from GuMiho. Banelings go the other way. And, well, the Planetary's going to hold, the Siege Tanks are going to hold, and some of the Bio Army even is going to hold. So DRG, his attack, his great stream of Lings and Banelings kind of falters to a trickle as he decides to go back towards the Planetary after most of the rest of his forces are taken out. And there's those Siege Tanks. Yet again, finding success for GuMiho. The Planetary claims 24 kills as well, so don't leave it out of the equation, as DRG unable to break GuMiho's defenses yet. Zerglings trickling in, gunned down by some of the Marines, and a lot of the army supply chasing it back. A single Viper for DRG, correctly diagnosing the source of the problem, which is that Terran units have range. And most of the Zerg ones, at least the relevant ones, don't have much. How many Hydras? 15 Hydras and 123 Zerglings in the composition. Many of those shifting into Banes now. going to be about 30. So a gland, speaking of glands, adrenal glands is 2/3 of the way done. But with a grand total of nearly 150 lings, DRG is winding up for another swing. GuMiho does not have ghosts, but instead 8 siege tanks and 4 Widowmons. Another bio army split off and takes out the 6 o'clock hatchery. That will trigger the attack from DRG up to the north. Lings and Banes streaming through. A few Widowmons connect, not finding huge hits. But the Banelings, on the other hand, rolling through the Marines. The planetary surrounded and ripped apart by the Zerglings. Hydra's doing their part as well. 17 SCVs go down with the planetary. The evacuating forces of the medevacs will regroup. Looking to take the tail end of the Banes that are retreating. Will do so successfully for now. Rocks taken down, creating less of a distance between them. DRG has spread the creep over most of his half the map and some of GuMiho's. +3 infantry weapons completing now. Yeah, GuMiho approaching full upgrades. DRG with only +3 carapace on the way. More Banelings. What is the ling count? Yep, maintaining around that 150 lings. Banelings and lings combined. Handful of Marines. GuMiho doing a good job of just splitting off a handful of units and constantly finding success. Once again, assuming a handful is about 5 to 8 Marines. High-sec auto-tracking on the way, as GuMiho starting to feel more confident out on the map. He has the upgrades, he has the supply, and he has the economy. Whereas DRG just not finding as much success, which is with his very mid-game oriented army. Lings trying to get the surround, but the medevacs are keeping most of the army intact. Banelings trickling in, one connection. Medevacs forced to pick up. Gotta be a little careful with Hydras in tow here. Couple siege tanks on the high ground, though. Medevacs should be dropping out momentarily. The Viper shows up. Blinding Cloud only catches one of the tanks. That should be enough to break through. Banelings triggered on the Widowmine. Widowmine blunting the force of that attack, but a lot of Banelings coming through the minerals. Once again, GuMiho is forced to pick up in the face of such an overwhelming amount of Zerg. GuMiho might be making the plays, but right now, DRG is directing the game. Constantly streaming through. More and more Hydras. Hydras getting a little caught up on the depots and the refinery here, giving GuMiho a bit of breathing room. But DRG, relentless. And also admitting that maybe Hydras, Lings, and Banes aren't going to be quite enough. A Lurker Den is on the way. But you clearly see his interest in ending it with these mid-game attacks. Though GuMiho, I think, becoming very wise to the situation as well. Relying more and more on the force multipliers, the Widowmines, the Liberators, the siege tanks, as opposed to the sheer manpower brought to bear by the Marines and Marauders. Not that he doesn't have plenty of those still, as well. DRG swinging in again from the north. Widowmine's gonna find a bit, but not nearly enough to stop the Zerg from rolling down into SCVs. Orbital Command forced to evacuate. More reinforcements stimming up and promptly moving back as Lings and Banes threaten to overwhelm. Orbital is burning, but still intact. GuMiho lining up his own counterattack, kind of sprung out here with siege tanks, Marines, Marauders, and medevacs, but there's not that much to deal with it directly. Lurker range is about to complete, but how many Lurkers? 0, which is not very many. DRG realizes 3 more in production. Double drop headed to the top right, about as far away as it could be from the main thrust of the attack to the south. And DRG going to be spread quite thinly here. GuMiho, enough Marines to take out the hatchery, does so to the 6 o'clock. Looking for that top right base, finds it. Medevac should be able to get most of the Marines out of there and head towards the corner as well. So DRG is maxed out with nowhere to go right now, as he loses 2 key hatcheries. GuMiho is reinforcing his army. About the best a conventional Terran can get here. He does not have the Ghost, but he has pretty much everything else. We don't mind taking out Blinding Cloud. Gonna negate some of the tanks, but the Liberators are still firing and tying up the Hydralisks. Banelings overrun the south side, but the north holds for GuMiho. Adaptive talents. About to complete. The Lurker is not yet a factor in these fights. He had 3 Lurkers on the way. I don't know what happened to 2 of them. They must have gotten blasted apart by the siege tanks. Lings. The counterattack at the 3rd. Once again, the SCVs will have to run or die, and I think they're going for the 2nd one. Loses 13 more to the Adrenalings. GuMiho. Holding strong when he can, but losing ground all over the place. DRG continually hammering the point home. Lurkers on the high ground. 1 siege tank. I don't know if that's gonna cut it. Widowmine does nothing. The Lurkers must be matched. And right now, GuMiho has nothing that could do so. He splits and stims. He's gonna try to fight him with bio. And it's... well, right now, DRG is just ripping through the Marines and Marauders. He might not like it, but the Lurkers were the answer. DRG is able to slice GuMiho to shreds, I say. A pretty conventional game. Neither player reaching for those ultra late game units. And unfortunately, GuMiho not getting the better end of it. He had his 2.5 minutes of cheesy glory. But at the end of the day, DRG overrunning him with Hydras, Lings, Banes, and Lurkers. Showing what he loves about StarCraft. So, hopefully you enjoyed. Hopefully I made your day a little bit better. Thank you to the Korean StarCraft League. Check out the info in the description. And Jimmy, 1,048 likes. We're getting close. All right, I noticed, not to be stingy, but we only got a few more than that on the last one. Gotta keep upping the ante. Number must go up. Haven't you been playing Diablo? Don't admit. Thank you for watching. Good luck. Have fun. I'll see you next time. Stay chill.